I was an artist my whole life. I grew up. I just had to draw and paint and get in there. And I also knew from a very young age that I was a teacher. I remember my third grade teacher, she really supported me as an artist. And one day I showed her this book on how to draw cats. And so the next day she said, "Eve, come up to the blackboard and teach the class how to draw cats." And I thought, sure, I can do that. Instead of saying, you know, it's a simple method of shapes and proportions, and I explained it all to them, and they would draw, and I would do a circle, and they would do a circle, and then a square and a triangle. And at the end of the lesson, they all ran up to me with their pictures of their cats, and they were so proud. And it was like, I knew then that I would teach. So it was my destiny. And then I went to Boston University and actually have a teaching credential in K through 12 in history. And so for me, it's how you see life based on what is happening around you. And that's how you make the images, because you're telling something, you are defining the undefinable. That's what visual art does, is define the undefinable through words. No words. It's imagery, memories, culture. So I was talking to Daniel earlier, and he used the term an anchor. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good way to use it as a metaphor, that it was something that was the constant. I wanted to paint some of my dearest people, because I missed them. During COVID, this all started. The idea had been germinating even before COVID, but then it was always like, if I could have some kind of anchor so that they would be able, you would be able to be there, then I would have something to work around. And also the color, the idea of the color. I'm a color person. I, taught color theory for 30 years. And so the color is very important as well. Red is a very rich, emotional heart. And so to me it was very easy to use this as a prop or as an anchor to get people to sit. And then I invited them. They could wear whatever they wanted, and I just said, sit. And I had my little Apple 12, which I still have, I still use, and just took hundreds of pictures, just all over all the different directions, and just talked and talked. We just talked and talked, and then when I had the pictures, I printed them out, and then I stuck them all over the wall with the big canvas, and I drew it, but I was always talking to the person in my heart, So they didn't, they weren't there, but there was the chair that was empty, and so I knew that they were there. You know, their mojo they put their little butt down and moved around and decided. So. Every person that you meet is part of you. And so these are people who have helped me become who I am, who have shaped me. And so I can draw anybody, even if I don't know them, because I know how to measure, I know how to do proportions and be accurate. But when you get to the soul of the human, that's a real portrait. And so even in the shortest, Alice Neel, one of the greatest American portrait artists, would say, you can get to know the person very quickly, but you need to make them laugh, and then all of a sudden they'll reveal themselves. And so I've learned how to do that. I've always just connected with people. So, let me think. The minute I meet somebody, I just want to know who they are, and I always throw out love. It's my life. It's love. So my students are my greatest teachers in that they knew I loved them and they loved me back. And so it's not hard for me. I'm not afraid of people. And trust, that's a good word with portraiture, because they've got to believe that you won't. And actually, I did have one of my dearest friends. She hated, I like to send the process, where I am in the piece and let people know. And she just hated the piece and told me, I've taken classes in portrait art. She's a writer. And I got so mad at her, I just whited the whole thing out. And we haven't talked. Well, so that's one disaster out of 26, I think, now. So it's like those things do happen. But she didn't trust me. And I trusted her, but sometimes it happens.
It's true, because I
think... So you've used the word trust,
yes.
But part of trust is vulnerability. And I think when I recognize that moment when they've lost their vulnerability, because they walk in like really thinking, oh, what is she going to do with me? And fear. And the vulnerability is there's a split second when they're... Okay, so I taught life drawing for 30 years. Had hundreds of models. And they're naked, right? So talk about vulnerability. But, they've done this their whole life, or as their job. And so they don't have much vulnerability, but they do. And you can see it. and you can see it in their body, and their body language will shift when they relax into the pose. And so I'll just talk to them and make them laugh, and my students are all waiting to get started, and then it's like, okay, now we're ready, do it. And then the students lose their vulnerability and their fear, and then they just go for it. We all have the same plumbing, it's like, okay, here I go, let's just draw. And so it's, I can recognize the vulnerability and when they lose it. I just can see it, so. Every painting is a breakthrough, because you have a flat two-dimensional picture that you're working with, but you're trying to call out the emotion of what's in their brain, and so as I finally select their pose, from all the pictures that I've taken, because it has some kind of breakthrough moment. But then it is the meaningful breakthrough of how do I speak with this, how do I tell their personality, who they are, maybe what their story is. In this series, I chose not to use props. I mean, this is a prop. That's it. Because I could have used symbolic props that would tell more about who they are. But for me, it was their hands and their faces, their body language. Those are the props those were the meaningful breakthroughs. Mm-hmm. So if you look at each one, you're going to see really different body language. So some of the people are very loosely painted, and some of them are very tight, and they or smooth versus rough. So tight isn't the right word. But these two people were best friends in high school, and they were my very first students when I first came to City College, and they were best friends. And you can see how different they are. Earth Mother and Nacra, which is mother of pearl. And their journeys are so different. And yet they should always be together. They still keep in touch with each other. They still keep in touch with me 40 years later or 35 years later. And Michelle, Julinda, I mean, you can just see their body language and what they're telling you as they come forward. They're looking at you. I don't have them looking not at you. They've got to be looking at me. And I remember when you were sitting, you were just doing these cute little things with your hands and talking and laughing, and your eyes, ooh, they're so blue. They're just so aquamarine blue, and it's like I had to get that, you know. It's like those are my prompts, my little things. Michelle is always, she's always like this, you know. Julinda is just like, she gushes. So, I mean, those are the three. And then the woman on the far, she's a friend of mine from the Triton Museum, and she's just always asks you questions. And yet she's just, and why? Why? Everything is why. You know, so I don't know.
It seems that you're...
Yeah, this is a wonderful question because it's something that I've tried to teach. Robert Bly, the famous poet, and great influencer of people, was a friend of mine, and he used the term the rider and the horse. And sometimes when you're on the horse, sometimes you let the horse run, and sometimes you pull the horse back. And so you pull the horse back with your brain, and then you let it run. And so you don't just stop that intellectual process. You go with, okay, so now I need to work on color. I need to work on line. I need to work on the elements of design. And then I let it flow. And then I just stop thinking and start painting. The horse is running. And then I pull the horse back because it's taking off too much. And so the horse and the rider is, and I always tried to teach that, to let them think, but not too much, and then go. Good book. It's called The Great Circle. And the author talks about art as distortion, visual art as distortion. Because anything that you see, you have to distort into your deep understanding. And as a trained artist, you learn to have your your thinking skills, learn to distort to speak your language from here to your arm to your hand. And so everything that's taken from three dimensions, even if it's from a two-dimensional painting or a photograph, you take that distortion and you make it your own. You make it your own. So I'm also a musician, and for me, it's when I do other people's music, I make it my own. And so I have to interpret it, and I have to interpret the people of what I'm seeing in them, why I love them. Yeah. I'm going to go back to graduate school, where, to me, graduate school is really important for a visual artist to go through, because they teach you to think at another level. They're trying to give you tools that make your work profound. That's the importance of graduate school. But in addition, They try to make you, or at least my experience, and my husband's experience, and I don't know about your experience, but they wanted me to think the way that they thought. And it was like, it took me a long time to get rid of that. And so, I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but how to become your own artist, how to become your voice and nobody else's voice, is you've got to just say, no, I'm not going to think the way you think. But you need to respect all of their intelligence, all of their wisdom, and then make them mad at you. Man, they were mad at me because they wanted me to paint abstract, and it was like, no, I couldn't. I have these skills. I like using them. And so I do use composition, and I do think abstractly when I think about the sense of the colors and the shapes, particularly the pillows and the chair, those shapes and the background. You could cut those out, and they actually would make interesting paintings. So I do think that way. They help me to think that way. But then you have to just say, gosh darn it, this is what I want to do. And then start pursuing it, because you're not good enough yet. And then you have to become as good as what you can be.
That's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Because
It's
we always
scary.
keep